The lone man stood on the mountaintop, sword drawn. He wore black, the traditional kenpo-gi shirt and hakama pants of a martial artist. His gaze was fixated on his target. At the moment, nothing else existed in the universe. It was easy to block out the world. High on the peak of Begunde Mountain, there was little to see. The thick clouds surrounding the mountaintop diffused the sunlight, casting a red-orange glow over the land. Except for the valley below him and the bright cloud of light above him, the man knew nothing of the world but himself, the tree in front of him, and the katana in his hands. The union of heaven, earth, and man made it very clear to him how ancient people could come to believe the mountains were sacred. However, if he had tried, he could have seen something that was not heaven, earth, or man. If he had stared into the cloud of light and squinted, he could have made a vague patch of darkness. But he did not try. That dark shape was exactly what he wanted to escape today. Instead, the man held his sword and gazed at the kam tree growing out of the rock in front of him. The tree was his enemy, the small orange fruit his target. Not a particularly wily foe, but it would prove challenging enough. He stood still, eyeing up the tree. He selected 5 pieces of fruit and mapped out his course. Run to the tree, sword raised, leap and slash, push off the rock while stabbing. Reaching the top of the tree would be difficult, but he may be able to push off the branches. At the top, all he needed to do was drop. The objective being, of course, to cut the fruit from the branches without cutting the leaves. Nothing beyond his ability, except he couldn't take his mind off the gunfire echoing from the valley. Far below him stood another man, also with a weapon. However, this man was much younger. He was dressed in a long brown coat. It appeared to be leather, but was worn through time and use. Unfortunately, he did not face as docile an opponent as a tree. Instead, Daniel Uzuki leveled his pistol-gripped shotgun against a cunning monster. The fiend reeked of death. Its brown skin clung tight to his body, outlining every bone, vein, and muscle in the demon's frame. But he wasn't concerned with the ugliness or the smell. His worries came instead from the 12-inch-long bone claws extending from the fingers of the monster's right hand. He also wasn't excited about the blood dripping from its fangs. Humanoid is a word that could be used to describe monsters such as this. However, few people ever did. Despite the monster's intimidating visage, he remained calm. He drew his strength from the 12-gauge shotgun held tight in his hands. He hesitated only to consider that there were other demons nearby. He stood, watching the monster. It stood, watching him. The others attacked. High up on the mountain peak, Zeke loosed his grip on the katana and waited. Crack! The gunshot rang out through the air. Next came the terrible scream of the monster. It was a sound that he recognized instantly. Every human on Earth knew that sound. Now he knew what the gunfighter had been shooting at. Not that there was much doubt before. Crack! 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 The sharp explosions of the gun echoed off the mountains, disturbing the otherworldliness of the scene. Crack! Crack! These shots rang higher than the others. The fighter had changed guns. Crack! A monster screamed, then nothing. The battle was over. Thankful for the silence, Zeke turned back to his training. Raising his sword to an en garde, he found his chosen fruit. He ran. His sword cut through the first fruit as planned. He jumped and hit another. Leaping off the rock, he sprang higher, stabbing the heavy sword as gently as he could. He nearly stumbled as his foot hit the thin branch, but he caught himself and pushed higher. Reaching the top of the tree, he spun his sword downward. A piece of fruit fell. So did Zeke. On his way, he pulled the sword. Another piece of fruit was severed from the boughs. He landed on his feet, sword extended in the follow-through position.
Impressive,
Came the voice of a young man behind him.
You must be Ezekiel Branderly.
He didn't turn. If you've come to kill me, it's only fair to let you know your gun is jammed.
Is it?
Daniel asked, trying to hide the nervousness in his voice. Zeke stood up straight, relaxing his sword arm. You made a lot of noise down there. Sounds like you're using inferior ammunition. That last shot you fired didn't recycle. Taking advantage of his turn back, Daniel pulled out the .45 pistol he kept. He was right. The copper casing of his last shot was fused in the chamber. The ejector had broken off trying to pull it out. The gun was useless now. It would need to be repaired when he returned to Niflheim.
If you mean to scare me, it's only fair to let you know you only nicked your third comp.
Did I? Daniel turned to drop his broken gun in the bag. Otherwise, he would have seen the com land hard on Zeke's head. Turning back to the swordman, the boy decided to get to his point.
Anyway, I've come to...
How many were there?
Excuse me?
The gunshots. You were fighting Draugr, weren't you? Daniel was caught off guard by this sudden interest. His nervousness about meeting the legendary ex-soldier faded.
Yes, I was.
Well, how many were there?
I don't know. 6 or 7, I guess.
Fast or slow?
I don't know. About normal, I'd say. Why are you asking about this?
Just worried, that's all. He seemed to relax, but Daniel couldn't tell why. Maybe he was convinced the boy wasn't an assassin, or maybe he just wasn't afraid. Some say the Draugr are increasing in number.
Probably just rumors.
The young fighter was eager to sound wiser than he looked.
Few people want to get near Draugr, much less study them.
Draugr had appeared on Earth several years ago. With the strength of monsters and near-human intelligence, they had proven a match for human civilization. Only the best of fighters had ever returned from a one-on-one match with a Draugr. Nevertheless, I'm not taking any chances. I still have to make my way back to the city. I imagine you do too. Unless, of course, you've come to kill me. He raised his blade slightly.
No,
Daniel instinctively took a step back.
I haven't come to kill you. Why do you say that?
Agents of the Corellin are everywhere. Zeke had caught several government agents patrolling his neighborhood in the past month. Such things were not uncommon under the Corellin's leadership. No one was protected unless the Overlord declared it. Spies were occasionally sighted throughout the cities, but lately he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of being stalked. 3 days ago, he caught one of the Corellin spies watching him train. Since then, he decided to take his chances outside the city. Draugr, he felt, were less dangerous than humans.
Oh, well, no. I'm just a messenger, not an assassin.
A message? For me?
From the supervisor.
He wasn't interested. The supervisor was the Corellin's lackey in charge of the slums of Niflheim. In Zeke's eyes, he was no better than the Overlord himself. Forget it.
I'm afraid I have to tell you anyway. He wants to see you immediately.
Look, I'm no fan of the Corellin, but if it's possible, I like his lackeys even less. So you can climb down this mountain and tell that pompous leech to go.
Ariel.
What?
The supervisor thought you might not want to come, so he told me to mention that name, Ariel. Is she a girlfriend or something?
He wouldn't. Zeke unknowingly tightened his grip on the sword.
He sounded pretty serious.
Zeke stood silent, trying to keep calm. It didn't surprise him. With so many spies following him, it was inevitable that one of them should learn about Ariel. He stood speechless, angry.
He'd like to see you today, if that's possible.
He had no choice. You any good with that thing, Clint? Daniel glanced down. His coat was open, revealing the shotgun hanging under his arm.
I don't mean to brag, but it got me up here, didn't it?
I don't mean to belittle your skills, gunboy, but 7 Draugr are nothing compared to the hordes I saw in the valley this morning.
Hordes. But Draugr usually travel alone.
Yeah, well, what do I know? Probably just rumors anyway, right? He walked over to a rock and pulled out a small bag. Throwing it over his shoulder, he began walking.
Where are you going?
Well, I thought I'd head back to town.
But Niflheim is that way.
Daniel pointed back in the direction he came from. Right, and so is a nice hike over the next 5 mountains until it drops you off in the wastelands surrounding the city. If we go my way, it's a 2-hour walk down the mountains and a 10-minute walk to Niflheim's north gate. He waited. Daniel followed him, embarrassed. They set off down the path, but he hadn't gone 10 steps before they heard the Draugr horde scream. Zeke pulled out his hand, signaling a halt.
What is it?
Those Draugr aren't hurt. They're scared. The 2 men stood silent. There was only one thing on Earth capable of frightening monsters as powerful as Draugr. Malak. Mysterious beings comprised of energy. They existed in the world, but somehow outside of it as well. Draugr could be defeated. They were strong, but not invincible. Malak, on the other hand, had never been so much as scratched since they had first appeared on Earth several hundred years ago. Ordinary weapons passed straight through their bodies as if they were ghosts. But unlike ghosts, they could make themselves felt when they want to be, and their touch never failed to destroy their victims. A flash of unearthly light shot from the valley. It's Malak, all right. Looks like we're taking your route.
6 hours of hiking through Draugr-infested mountains because of one Malak?
He felt like he was talking to a child. These are the things that wiped out the entire North American continent. Not even cockroaches live there now.
Yeah, but wasn't that a whole bunch of them?
Zeke held up his katana. I can cut Draugr. If you want to tangle with the Malak, be my guest. But I'm going to stick to the horde of things that can die instead of the one thing that can't. He turned and started walking. He didn't wait. The boy hesitated, then dashed after him.
I'm Daniel. Daniel Uzuki.
Stay close and try not to cause problems. This could get tricky. The 2 men set off together down the path that would lead to the next mountain. As enclosed as they had felt on the cloudy mountaintop, they were far from alone. Standing in the valley that had been, until a moment ago, filled with Draugr, the Malak watched them go. It was unusual for a Malak to choose a human shape, although this one had done so. He had grown fond of it. Human form was perfect for using tools, for adapting. Also, unlike other Malak, he had a mission. Right now, he needed to follow. He slung 2 massive broadswords, each too large for a human to wield, across his back, set off through the trees.